Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of the story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
Hey everybody, today's date, December 12th, 2020, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, this is a podcast that we are trying to watch our language on, but there are some things we made sure that may be of a graphic nature, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Thank you everybody for watching. As we go and get into it, I feel 100% better because there's nothing there. Say what you want about the flu. The flu will put you down for a couple of weeks. But I am back to my old self with a lot less coughing. But that's not what you came to hear for about me. Let's go ahead and get into what the news is about this week. As I like to call it, the succession of, the ever-going tale of Dorito.
Legal battle lines are hardening over the president's virtually impossible effort to try to invalidate the election. More than 100 House Republicans are now supporting a long-shot Texas lawsuit, also supported by the president, aimed at overturning the results in 4 swing states Joe Biden won. Pennsylvania's Democratic Attorney General called the lawsuit a seditious abuse of judicial process, and even some Republicans blasted it.
I do not understand the legal theory.
At a Hanukkah celebration overnight, President Trump again falsely claiming he can win.
Here are certain very important people. If they have wisdom and if they have courage, we're going to win this election.
Meanwhile, new details about the federal criminal investigation.
Okay, so of course, if you've been under a rock this week, yes, Texas State Attorney General decided to basically sue other states that actually had voted for now President-elect Joe Biden to reverse it. Even more so, that 100 House Republicans actually signed on and agreed to this. I don't know about you, but I hear treason. For simple fact of the matter is, this is how can I put this ever so nicely? Dorito's last stand. Like I said before, he's not trying to win the presidency to make America great again. No, he's trying to win the presidency to avoid prison, which is now starting to become more and more likely since he did not win the election, and that this is a last-ditch effort by him and his followers to do so. But thankfully, as I started to worry about the Supreme Court, they actually did do some things right.
Up front in Washington. And Jessica, look, they put this out on a Friday night. They didn't mince words and they didn't waste time. What are you learning about the court's decision here and what happens next?
Yeah, Aaron, this is it. Game over for what was a long shot lawsuit anyway. It's a lawsuit, like you said, that gained support from more than 100 Republicans in Congress, nearly 24 Republican attorneys general. But the justices tonight have spoken for the second time this week, shutting down these Republican efforts to stop Joe Biden from becoming president. So the Supreme Court putting it this way in this one-page order tonight. Texas has no right to even file this lawsuit at the high court because Texas has no right to legally challenge challenge how another state conducts its elections. And in this case, of course, Texas was challenging the election procedures for 4 crucial battleground states. And in this order, 2 of the most conservative justices, Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas, they said that they did believe the Supreme Court should have let Texas at least file the case. But then these 2 justices said that even if that had happened, they too would have rejected it. So this is a complete rejection of the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, his efforts to stop the electors in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, stop them from voting for Joe Biden when they meet on Monday. They cannot stop them at this point. So this was a short order, just 1 page and just a few sentences. But Aaron, this is a major defeat for Republicans tonight. And of course, it's a victory to all those states and officials who blasted this effort by Texas. In fact, officials in Pennsylvania, they called it a cacophony of bogus claims that called for a seditious abuse of the judicial process. That was in their court filing. And tonight, the Supreme Court really seeming to agree when they issued this order that capped a week of 2 Supreme Court rejections of Republican efforts. And of course, Aaron, we have seen repeated cases where they have shut down Republican efforts all over the country by state and federal judges. Now we're seeing it twice in 1 week from the Supreme Court.
I mean, the Supreme Court. Who knew? And here we were worried about the Supreme Court that is mostly conservative run would have turned around and sat there and gave Trump exactly what he wanted. But again, even the whole legality of it all. And you're right, Kelly, he won. They should let it go. You think so? But again, this was a latch-ditch effort. The fact that a state could sue another state over the fact of who they voted for, and it was 4 specific key states, 4 battleground states, that they tried to sue and say what exactly? I mean, Trump still to this day is still saying that the election was stolen from him, when he has yet to prove a shred of evidence. Even his own personal attorney, William Barr. I know I said personal attorney, even though he acts like a personal attorney. But still, our current USAG, Bill Barr has sat there and said he cannot find any evidence to support Trump's claim, which is probably the reason why he'll be fired soon. Again, this whole thing was nothing more than trying to keep Trump in office. That's all it was. Now, the thing that really does kill me out of this is that 100 Republicans backed this. Now, here's my thing. If 100 Republicans back this, shouldn't those same 100 Republicans be removed? I mean, you basically just did treason. I mean, let's think about this for a second. You tried to supersede the U.S. Constitution, the same U.S. Constitution that you basically signed up to defend, and you just crapped all over it. So I was thinking to myself, I'm like, for all these 100 Republicans plus these other ones that signed on to this mess, should you really keep your job? I mean, it's obvious that you don't care how you got there, but again, should you keep your job at this rate? Because you've pretty much shown your true colors. That's all I'm saying. But moving right along, guys, like I said before, I know a lot of people are really worried about stimulus checks, but I'm just going to point this out here. What Senator Manchin said about this does not make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
Plan to extend a Friday deadline, and House and Senate leaders are considering a $908 billion spending package to help small businesses, unemployed workers, and state and local governments. They want to attach that $908 billion to a larger spending bill that will keep the government operating in the new year. Now, the House plans to vote tomorrow to keep the government running for 1 more week, giving negotiators more time, and the Senate is expected to follow suit.
Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia is part of that bipartisan group promoting that coronavirus relief plan. He joins us from Capitol Hill. Senator, good morning. Thank you for being with us. First
good
question.
Morning, Anthony and Gail.
Yeah, good morning. First question, do you have the votes to pass this?
Oh, I sure do think so. Failure is not an option, Anthony. We just can't fail. There's too much at stake here. People running out of their lifelines, which end and are eliminated at the end of December. We all know that. So food assistance, shelter, the basic necessities of life are something that we have to continue to help people. Businesses are falling through the cracks because they've basically been ordered to close or shutter down, or basically no indoor dining, restaurants, venues.
So I'm going to stop him right here just because of how annoying this is. You guys, I know I paused it, and I know the pause button is right there, but I just want to point this out. This is what they're pushing forward here. They're pushing forward $288 billion for small businesses, $108 billion for unemployed workers, $160 billion for state and local governments. I don't know about you guys, but do you see anything in here that suggests that, I don't know, would actually help people? Because again, this is the part that I wanted to point out, and this is why I sit there and say that this was a little bit disappointing on Joe Manchin's part, is because this is their bipartisan plan. Understand, Republicans don't care about people. They'll sit there and say they care about small businesses. That's where that Paycheck Protection Program crap came from, because it didn't help small businesses. It helped out corporations. It helped out churches. But it did not help out the small businesses it's designed for. And again, this bipartisan, which is this Democratic and Republican plan that actually has, that they say bipartisan just because it has two people on it. Again, I don't see anything here I do see for unemployed workers, which means that benefits should be extended. However, $288 billion again for small businesses and $160 billion for local governments. Again, I always ask this question. I ask this question to almost any representative of state and Congress that I can get to. Why is it so hard to just introduce a bill just for the American people? That's my question. Because the American public is what needs help. It's not the fact that you have to tie everything to it. And again, this is why I sit there and say I fear from both sides. I mean, Republicans won't do it. Obviously, they won't do it. Mitch McConnell has had many stimulus packages come to his desk, and none of them have went to the Senate floor. Republicans have sat there and told people, you've heard it from the mouths of many of them, that you don't need that, the American public doesn't need more money because that means they'll stay at home expecting checks. Isn't that what they're doing right now as a congressman? And again, Congress people have nothing to worry about. They still get their money in full. They still get their benefits in full. They still get their vacations in full. Even more so by next week, they will also be set for. They'll also be in sessions for the holidays. And these are people who are paid. Like I said, you don't see a broke. I said there's no such thing as a broke congressman. Let's just be honest about that. But the plan so far is a simple fact of the matter is there's nothing in there for the American people. And I've said this before, and I don't blame Bernie Sanders for standing out on this. For the simple fact of the matter, Bernie Sanders had the best idea. That, $2,000 a month should have been given to every American citizen until the pandemic was over. It is very simple. We have the money, because if you're going to sit there and think about throwing another nearly $300 at this Paycheck Protection Program, that alone should tell you a lot. But again, until I would rather see, and again, this is in the Democrats' court, because, if all goes well, they already have control over the House. It is a very, 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 very strong chance that if Georgia comes through again, that they also may get the Senate. Again, this would be a perfect time to turn around and actually get what you need. Again, pushing forward with a citizens only bill. That would make the most sense to me. You know why? You know why we need a citizens only bill? Because we're seeing more and more stories like this.
Since his wife died in 2012, John Ayers counts his blessings, like Bella and Bear.
It's such a goofball.
And his job as an insurance agent.
You were earning good money.
I was making a salary.
Enough to pay $2,000 rent on a house in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Young. We're here for you.
And because of a severe arthritis and diabetes,
Let me catch my breath for a second.
an Uber driver known as Fast Ice to get around. But a few months after the pandemic broke, John lost his job, exhausted his savings on rent, medicines, and utilities, and was slapped with an eviction notice.
I need help. It's the first time I've said it. I need help. Because I'm about to be homeless.
Like millions of Americans, John could be homeless on New Year's Day when the CDC's order halting evictions expires.
And right now, I
While he can't afford his medications, he's not worried about himself.
it's the thought of being out there with a dog. Because I'm not putting my dog down.
This is a residential eviction for non-payment of rent.
County Judge Robert Lee says evictions in Broward County could triple in the first 3 months of 2021, from 5,000 to 15,000. And in the case of some landlords,
they are almost in the same desperate position as the tenant is.
To meet skyrocketing demand, the court has moved judges who try crimes, medical, and insurance claims to evictions.
I'm with Coast to Coast Legal Aid.
Pro bono attorneys are going where the need is great. Food lines to help tenants fight to stay in their homes.
So you're looking for a shelter?
But the call volume at this homeless shelter in Miami-Dade County increased from 800 calls a month on average to 1,200 last month, and the homeless population is already growing.
The fear of that turning into thousands upon thousands drives me completely crazy. I cannot almost have the conversation without breaking down over what it means.
As for John, he's looking for a job.
Upload my resume to these places.
And counting a new blessing. Fast Ice now drives him free of charge.
You're a good man, my brother. You are a good man.
A man desperate for a miracle.
And that's just one of many. And the thing, this is where we're headed if, again, Congress doesn't act. It just literally and figuratively makes no sense at this point that they're arguing that people who are taken care of are arguing over folks who by next year could be homeless. Again, this is something that could literally be remedied literally overnight. But this goes to show you where two different parties' preferences and responsibilities are. Because I can't blame this all on Trump. I mean, yeah, Trump has a lot to do with this because he right now, for all his executive actions, could have turned around and actually done some great things. Cool. But again, House Democrats are not standing together and just submitting a citizens only bill to sit there and tell the American public, hey, we hear you guys are suffering all this stuff. Let's go ahead and get you what you need. So it's on both sides. But both sides are covered. And I always said it best that government lawmakers' salary and things of that nature should be tied to their job performance. We get job performances all the time. So amazingly enough, that's why I sit there and say, if your job performance is crappy, they dock you, write you, or fire you. We should be able to do the same thing to Congress. I think that would solve a lot of problems. But speaking of problems, again, if you are a part of Trump's staff right now, especially if you're the FDA chief, we still hope you have a job after this.
The White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, has told the FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn that he must authorize the country's first coronavirus vaccine by the end of the day or else resign. That threat comes hours after President Trump tweeted that the FDA is, and I quote, a big ol' slow turtle in its handling of vaccines, and called on Hahn to, quote, stop playing games and start saving lives. Caitlin Collins is at the White House. Josh Dawsey is also reporting this out from the Washington Post. But Caitlin, I do want to begin with you because you just heard from the FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn. What did he say about this?
Well, notably, he's denying how this conversation is being characterized, Brooke. He says in a statement, this is an untrue representation of the phone call with the chief of staff. The FDA was encouraged to continue working expeditiously on Pfizer's EUA request. FDA is committed to issuing this authorization quickly, as we noted in our statement this morning. But Brooke, after the Washington Post first reported this, we now have multiple people confirming that this is how this phone call went between the chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and the FDA commissioner this morning, where basically Meadows told Hahn that if they did not have this emergency use authorization granted by the end of day today, that he needed to be prepared to resign from his job as the FDA commissioner, a job that he has only held for about a year now. And so what the end of the day is in the White House's eyes, not clear if that's 5:30 or later this evening, or if they are not going to actually follow through with this threat at all. But it does speak to the level of tension that has been building between the White House and the FDA for the last several weeks now, where there were those two meetings that Mark Meadows had with Stephen Hahn in his office here at the White House 2 days in a row, now culminating with this phone call today that really speaks to the president's frustration that this emergency use has not been granted yet by the FDA.
Josh, you broke the story. What did you hear?
What we heard is that the president remains very frustrated, Brooke, that the vaccine has not been expedited as fast as he wanted it. That Great Britain obviously had theirs first, which riled the president to no end. And the president's been putting on extreme pressure on his closest advisors to get the vaccine out the door and approved. And what we were told was this morning, Mark Meadows made that call to FDA Commissioner Hahn in conjunction with the president's tweet where he attacked the FDA. And there was a desire, a fervent desire, I guess you would say, to have it.
Let's think about that for a second. You're the FDA chief. I mean, you're the guy that is a part of the Food and Drug Administration, and you have been told in so many words that unless you approve this vaccine to be immediately distributed out to the public, there is a chance I would fire you. Think about that. That we have somebody like Dorito who is literally going around, and this is not the first time he has turned around and actually threatened people's jobs. I mean, you saw it with Jeff Sessions. You saw it. You're seeing it with William Barr, and he's fired people before. So again, this should not be any different. But it does bring up something interesting about the vaccines, and this story that I was going to go to, because a lot of black people, my people, which I love dearly, have sat there and said many times through social media and memes, things of that nature, about the vaccine and what could happen. And so it always comes down to it of why we are so skeptical to take the vaccine. And honestly, I actually found a video that probably conveys a lot.
Welcome back to CBS This Morning. The FDA could approve emergency authorization for Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine as soon as today, but no vaccine will be effective if the people don't take it. In our series, Vaccinating America, we're looking at coronavirus vaccine hesitancy is what it's called. 60% of Americans say they would definitely or probably get a vaccine, but another survey shows only 14% of Black Americans and 34% of Latinos trust that it will be safe. Adriana Diaz spoke to an influential local leader in Boston who's having trouble persuading people to get the shot. Adriana, good morning to you. It is a problem.
It is a big problem, Gail. Skepticism about this vaccine, as we've been reporting, is widespread, especially in communities of color, which of course have been disproportionately impacted by this virus. So how do you undo decades of distrust? One strategy is to spread the vaccine gospel.
You see, we say that, but do we mean it?
Reverend Liz Walker says she preaches about three things: truth, love, and lowering anxiety.
Everything good comes from God.
Her focus now is spreading the truth about the vaccine. Half her congregation says they won't take it. Some believe God will save them.
I always respond that, yes, you should put your trust in God. But remember, God uses doctors. God is speaking through science.
President Carter and Ronald Reagan. The former news anchor turned preacher says in her Boston neighborhood, which struggles with violence and disinvestment, skepticism about the vaccine stems from years.
Once you have been traumatized by the world, by the police, by the doctor, by the system, you tend not to trust anybody.
We don't know much about this pandemic.
To rebuild that trust, she's fighting fear with facts, serving on a task force created by Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker to ensure the vaccine is distributed equitably.
I wanted to let them know that they had a responsibility, though I think they knew it and still know it, to be transparent.
The primary endpoint.
On a whim, she invited Dr. Anthony Fauci to church, well, virtual church, to speak directly to her parishioners.
The speed with which it's been done does not compromise safety. Don't deprive yourself of the advantage of an extraordinarily important advance in science by not getting vaccinated.
How hard has COVID-19 hit your patient population?
I mean, it's been pretty devastating.
Raul Garza runs Aunt Martha's Health and Wellness, which operates 23 community health centers across Illinois. Nearly 90% of their patients are African American and Latino, groups that are dying of COVID at nearly 3 times the rate of white Americans. What are some of the specific reasons that patients say they don't want to take this vaccine?
They're curious about whether the trials were culturally specific to their own population. I think it's about just patients feeling like there's still discrimination in healthcare, and why would they have confidence in a vaccine when they've been neglected historically?
Most notoriously, the Tuskegee syphilis study. From 1932 to 1972, the U.S. government experimented on African American men, letting them suffer with the disease even after a treatment existed. And for Hispanics, according to the census, they are the least likely of any ethnic group to visit a doctor. Garza says an effective way to reach minorities is through messengers that look like them.
We are on the front lines in care delivery.
That's why the National Medical Association, the nation's oldest professional organization for African American doctors, helped make this PSA. They also created a task force of African American doctors to vet the vaccine safety data the FDA is reviewing. Dr. Leon McDougall is president of the NMA and chair of its vaccine task force.
There has been a cloud of political influence, and we thought it would be important for our community to have a nonpartisan, independent voice speaking to vaccines safety and efficacy.
How unprecedented is it to have a task force of minority doctors essentially review or double check the FDA's work?
Well, that is novel. The times that we are in are novel. And there's just a lot of confusion. And we want to cut through that confusion, because for the Black community, it's a difference between a life and death.
Dr. McDougall says their task force of African American doctors has met with Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca, and they're pleased with the information they've received so far. Now, for the U.S. to reach that critical threshold of herd immunity, public health experts say roughly 70% of Americans need to be vaccinated.
And I thought that was pretty interesting. I said I like the fact that they did mention the Tuskegee experiment. Again, for me, like in history, the Tuskegee experiment was one of the darker days in medical history, especially with Black people. Of course, you have Black men being infected with syphilis and how they were treated. Again, for our people to actually sit there and, be told about this does bring back those vibes. This does bring back some memories of being told about certain medicines and things you're given. And of course you're skeptical. We are skeptical by historical optics alone. So again, this is why I sit there and tell people, and I've had the same discussion about trying to inform people about COVID, about the COVID-19 vaccine, and that yes, it was actually designed by a Black woman. It was actually designed by a Black scientist. So again, that just makes me feel a little bit better about it. And I was one of those, like I said before on this podcast many, many times before, that I was skeptical about these vaccines because we were the only, at the time, we were the only ones actually out there saying anything close to a vaccine. You didn't hear anything from overseas. You didn't hear anything from other medical institutions. You're starting to hear that now, especially with Great Britain and Europe, who are actually taking the Pfizer vaccine and approving it there. So there's starting to be some camaraderie as far as these vaccines being approved across the board, and that yes, I think if the science is there, because I'm a guy that likes science, is the data there? Yes. But for black people, it is going to be a little bit harder just because you got to convince them to take this. Because, well, also at the same time, there's a whole bunch of misinformation out there, and individuals who, like myself, that like to, do podcast, things of that nature, that might have a negative orientation toward medicine. I'm not going to point out any names. You probably know who they are. They'll probably sit there and say, these are the same people that were against vaccinations of children. Again, you've probably heard them out there. But I think at this point, just because the vaccine is there, if the data is, then I'll be the first to say it. If the data is there and validated, then I have no problem taking it. But again, this just goes to show you that we have a lot of disillusion and we have a lot of misinformation out there that really keeps people from getting the things they need. That's just the truth about it. And the only way that's actually going to be resolved is that, like they said, I mean, I hate to see because let's be honest, black people feel better when they see other black people. I'll be the first one to say it. I feel better when I walk to a restaurant and I see other black people. There's safety in numbers. I feel better when I'm going to a town I don't even know, when a town I've never been to, and I see black people. Again, I feel better. There's just something about seeing other black people in situations like that it's a safety thing for us. That's the way we've always known. Yeah, you always said don't go to a place where you don't see us. If you don't see at least 5 of us in that area, you are definitely going to be paranoid. But if you actually see more than 20 in an area, you feel a little bit better about things. The vaccines will have to be in the same area. That we have to be able to show that it's safe, but we also have to show that other people like us know that it's safe in order to actually increase that security, in order to increase that comfortability. That's the only way that's going to be able to work. But speaking of things that are going to be able to work, and I never thought I'd say this, we might actually have a black Secretary of Defense. Who knew?
Moments ago, President-elect Joe Biden officially nominated retired Army General Lloyd Austin, the former commander of U.S. Central Command, to be his Secretary of Defense. If confirmed by the Senate, Austin would be the first black American to lead the Department of Defense. But some Democrats are already pushing back because Austin needs a congressional waiver to be confirmed to the historically civilian post. CNN Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr joins me now. Barbara, despite the concerns, Biden is now explaining why he picked Austin. Tell us what you're learning.
Indeed, Jake. Writing in Atlantic, the president-elect wrote a detailed defense of his Austin selection, saying in part it's because General Austin has proven to work well under pressure. The first pressure Austin may face is getting confirmed by Congress. Retired four-star General Lloyd Austin will be the first black Secretary of Defense if confirmed by the Senate. President-elect Joe Biden selecting a general he's known for years.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you the Vice President of the United States, Mr. Joe Biden.
But Biden's first commander-in-chief decision to nominate Austin may run into a political buzzsaw on Capitol Hill. Austin needs a congressional waiver, as required by law, because he's been out of the military less than 7 years. The top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee put his marker down in 2017 after a waiver was granted to James Mattis, President Trump's first defense secretary.
Let me be very, very clear. I will not support a waiver for any future nominees under the incoming administration or future administrations.
Now Reid says he would like to hear from Austin on why he should get a waiver. Concern also from other Democrats that civilian leadership of the military remains the norm and there isn't an unexpected cozy relationship with generals still on duty. Senator Richard Blumenthal already opposes a waiver. 3 other Democratic senators are uncertain. Choosing another recently retired general to serve in a role that is designed for a civilian just feels off, said Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin, who knows Austin from her time at the Pentagon. Austin is a historic choice for a military that for decades has struggled with diversity. Just 19% of the enlisted force is black. Just over 8% of the force are officers, according to the Pentagon. Austin is a highly decorated combat veteran. Much of his recent career focused on Afghanistan and Iraq, where he led the 2011 withdrawal. The deeply reserved one-time four-star now must become a public political figure, dealing with Russia, China, and convincing Congress to cut defense spending. But a former battle buddy thinks he is very much up to the job.
Lloyd is a very introverted, thoughtful, ethical, and courageous soldier and individual. He's smart as a whip.
The two men know each other quite well. Their relationship dates back to when Austin was in command in Iraq, and Beau Biden, the president-elect's late son, was.
Okay, so again, like I said, that's General Lloyd Austin, four-star general. And now this is why I say Democrats, this is why you guys falter, is because this is a slam dunk. I mean, optics-wise, we've never had a black Secretary of Defense. This is like someone saying, this is as good as you're going to get. A four-star general that actually served in Afghanistan with a stellar career record, and you have Democrats going, hold up. Hold up for what? You have what you need. It is amazing that we sit there and say half these people that get in these jobs have no experience. And we're sitting there going, I mean, literally, experience. He hasn't been in the Army in 7 years. He's actually retired. He is, and like I said, to have favor of the Army and things of that nature, I don't understand Democrats. It's amazing. I said they're so focused on a civilian being on Secretary of Defense. Why not try it? That's my argument. Because they keep on saying the whole entire time, well, we just can't have another military person in a Secretary of Defense because you're afraid another chicken hawk? I think for a guy who was responsible for the reduction of troops in Afghanistan is not going to be the first guy that goes to war. I think that he'll do his best to avoid it. But like we've seen before, there are some things, war is inevitable. I hate to say that because you have some leaders that just will not let it go. Again, I see no problem with this. I think this is a great pick. But that's always been the Democrats' problem. The Democrats' problem has always been that they only come together for certain things. But when they finally get the keys of the kingdom, then it's like watching Game of Thrones. We're okay when the White Walkers show up, but once they're all said and done, now we're worried about who's going to be on the Iron Throne. And this is the part where I sit there and say this, where the Republicans have it better than the Democrats. Republicans may all be drones, but they all toe the party line. Democrats need to get together and just go ahead and allow this man to be Secretary of Defense for the Biden administration, because I personally don't see anything wrong with the guy. I think it's great. But you have those out there that just, I'm not going to say not support a black man, but but anyway, moving right along, guys. Like I said before, there are a couple of very odd stories. This one I'm about to play about a Florida scientist that was reporting on the COVID-19 and then was fired, and then this happened.
Tonight, showing the search warrant executed at the home of a Florida scientist who was the coronavirus tracker for the state of Florida. She says she was fired in retaliation for public comments about COVID-19. Tonight, hear the new images showing her pleading with officers not to point their guns at her children. And tonight, hear what authorities, including Florida's governor, are saying about the raid. Here's Rachel Scott.
Police, search warrant, open the door.
Tonight, new police body camera video released of that raid at the home of a Florida scientist.
Outside.
Rebecca Jones, a former state coronavirus data tracker, recording that encounter too, making it public earlier this week.
Do not point that gun at my children!
You can hear her claim police pointed guns at her children, who were upstairs. You can see one officer pointing his weapon in that direction. The raid part of an ongoing investigation into a hack of the state's Department of Health internal emergency alert system. Officers seizing her electronics.
I mean, it's a political just shakedown and a way to try to shut me down.
Jones once ran the state's COVID-19 dashboard. She was fired in May. She says in retaliation for claiming the department was doctoring COVID-19 data at a time when the governor was trying to reopen the state. The governor says she was fired for insubordination, defending the officers today.
These people did their jobs. They've been smeared as the Gestapo for doing their jobs. They did a search warrant.
The Florida Department of Law Enforcement releasing that body cam video saying the officers exercised extreme patience. Tonight, the investigation into that hack is still ongoing.
Okay, so let's get one thing straight. So you used to work for the state as far as being the coronavirus tracker. You were fired and then your house was raided because you spoke out. Yeah, completely not fishy at all. But then again, Florida again, much like Tennessee, is starting to become a black site. So again, there might be some truth in the fact that she's a whistleblower to all this, but to be raided by the police for looking for evidence of what? And I think to myself, this is another whistleblower case that she might have sat there and saw that they were fudging the numbers in order to make it easier for Governor DeSantis, Trump's favorite puppet, to turn around and sit there and reopen the state, as he has done. And you wonder why Florida right now has some of the highest coronavirus cases out there. So again, I always sit there and say that there's a little bit fishiness when you literally were blowing the whistle on something, and now you're being raided. That would be like, me talking about, how terrible Tennessee legislature really is, and then the next day I get raided. Again, a little bit fishy. Even more fishy about this one woman, again, about the whole idea of no-knock warrants and the fact of how dangerous they are. She speaks about it.
When the police forced their way into my house, my husband and I were doing what we normally do, and that's sitting down talking about what went on in the day and what we wanted to do. And they came in forcefully, beating and knocking on the doors, and we were like sitting there in our pajamas and my gown, and they came in, they told us to put our hands up and walked toward them. We did that, and asking them why were they here, what did they want, but no one responded to us, and they left the warrant on the table. No one ever handed us that warrant. No one ever even said why they were there. We didn't know until after they were gone, and they let us come back in the house. So I just thought that was horrible, to know that something like that could happen in the United States. I mean, right here in your own city. This happens to people too much. It's just not fair. It's just not right. And because of Breonna Taylor, I thought that was the worst thing that could have happened. She has no future, there's nothing left for her. The point was, I thought about it, that literally could have been my husband and myself. That I could have got killed. John, it's just, it played a big factor in why I decided to go ahead and do it, because I thought that could happen to people anytime, any place, when they can do that. And it's just not fair.
And she's actually right. That was actually a story of a grandma that was suing over a no-knock warrant because, again, as she described, that they basically just came into her house. Her and her husband were put out. We're not given a reason why. And then they just upped and left. Now, for anybody who's ever been on the other end of a no-knock warrant, it is not fun, especially when, again, you've done nothing wrong. And the problem with these no-knock warrants is, again, this does go back to Breonna Taylor, in which they did enter her home and killed her in her sleep. Again, the whole idea of no-knock warrants, as states are starting to get rid of them, were to allow police to catch criminals. The problem is that a lack of law enforcement training and as far as checking on certain things, not doing their due diligence, has led to innocent people being harmed and or killed. Again, I cannot blame her for that because she said it best. That could have happened to anybody. However, it's happening more to black people and minorities these days, which they don't want to say, but it is. And the thing about it is, this is why I say about defunding the police and holding them accountable. This is why I say that training needs to be longer than 6 months. This is why I say that mandatory psychiatric review and everything else needs to happen. Yes, you want to protect and serve? Cool, but we're going to put you through the ringer first. That's why many other countries overseas, you have to train so much longer to be a cop, and you don't have half the stuff that America has because America's police is militarized. I can go on and on about this, but when it comes down to it, the no-knock warrants are just a bigger problem of our law enforcement issue that just needs to be handled. But speaking of things that does need to be handled, guys, again, you guys heard me say about COVID, about wearing a mask and things of that nature. And I keep on saying there are those out there that sit there and say that it's their right or their religious rights or everything else is or any other BS excuse they're giving to sit there and say that there's not reason to wear a mask. Well, here's one I hope that'll change your mind.
Every day, thousands more arrive at hospitals across the country. Fueled by another single-day record of new infections, medical centers like Providence St. Joseph near Los Angeles have seen COVID admissions triple.
I think 10 has to go on a vent. He doesn't look good.
NBC News given exclusive access inside their COVID ward.
We've never had to treat so many sick patients at the exact same time.
Every bed in this ICU wing is filled. Doctors,
Can you recycle?
nurses, and a web of drips and pumps struggle to keep a growing number of young patients alive.
How quickly can people go from sick to ICU?
24 hours. And even less. I've had patients come in not requiring any supplemental oxygen, just high fever, don't feel well. Within 24 hours, they're intubated in the ICU.
Across the country, a record number of Americans died Wednesday. Down the hall, Nurse Mane Abrudan is losing another patient.
There's a very good chance that he may pass without the family being able to say goodbye.
How much time do you think this patient has?
Don't think past midnight.
The team here is aware of the mobile morgues outside Dallas, the 6 hospitals reaching capacity in Michigan, and the 10 rural counties in California out of ICU beds.
The staff here, like at so many other hospitals around the country, are exhausted. The days are 12 hours long, and the shifts are 12 in a row.
The sacrifices made are also personal.
I don't get to see my mom because I'm scared they might get something from me. So we're all doing our part and we're just hoping everybody will do the same. Sorry.
Inside one of the hospital's most restrictive areas, we met Jose Bonilla, who says he felt like he was drowning when he was admitted. Tonight, so many on the front lines feel like they're underwater.
What's the hardest part?
I think not knowing when this is going to end.
The end still far from near. Miguel Almaguer.
And that's the truth. I mean, it is every ICU, and this is why I always tell people, every ICU across the state is exactly like that. I mean, even here in Tennessee, I mean, when I used to volunteer at certain hospitals, I knew how the ICUs are. So I know that St. Thomas and Vanderbilt and Meharry and various other hospitals right now are dealing with this. And that we even have a COVID tracker here in Nashville that'll sit there and it spells a very different story as far as infections go. And if I were to look at downtown right now, especially Saturday, mid-Saturday on a Broadway, I guarantee it's packed with a whole bunch of people who aren't wearing masks and who aren't doing social distancing. I can almost guarantee it at this point. And yet they wonder why our COVID cases are still high. Bottom line, wear a mask. It's not that fucking hard. Aside from that, guys, like I said, a few more stories before we get to our feel-good news segment. This one I thought was interesting. Several top companies vow to hire a total of 1 million black people over 10 years. 37 companies, including Comcast, are joining the startup 110 to tackle systemic barriers in the workforce. What they're basically doing, as it says, is that they're wanting to hire 1 million black people to chip away at economic, as they say, and I quote, to chip away the economic barriers plaguing black people in the country. They are targeting such companies as Target, Verizon, Nike, Bank of America, and Comcast, who have signed on to help black people without 4-year degrees gain access and keep sustaining jobs. Here's my thing about this. Now, of course, this could be the fact that, a lot more people are paying attention to the fact of the job of the workforce and the fact that minorities have been severely handicapped when it comes to white people and other races. That's the thing about it. Hi, Teresa. That again, this has always been the case. This is nothing new. And again, this is why I point this out. I point this out for the simple fact of the matter is just that that yes, we've always been handicapped. One of the lines from a show I used to watch a long time ago, where a black father was teaching his daughter, where he sat there and told her, you have to be twice as good to get half of what they want. They being white people, and I know white people are bad, but again, this economical barrier, this economical divide has always been there. Black people have always been paid. On average, while black people are paid 20 to 25% less than what a white person would make. In most jobs, a white person is more likely to be hired than promoted 4 or 5 times over than a black person is. And again, it's like it's where a black person has to be twice as qualified for a white person to get the same job. I'm not the only cat. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only cat out there that is still and is also still fighting these borders, these hurdles. But again, I do like the fact that companies are trying, but then again, companies had to be told. And again, that's where I sit there and say, I can't really say that it's a barrier when it's been more like a fence that's been put up to basically it's been working for as long as it did. So again, this is the part where I sit there and say, yeah, it's great that they're trying to finally reach out to minorities vis-a-vis black people and actually get them hired. But the thing about it is, the question I always want to ask is, why was that fence put up in the first place? I mean, there could be various reasons. I've always sat there and said it best when I was trying to, still am trying to move up in worlds. It's just that a white person will never hire a black person that can wind up doing better than them. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that's the way I feel about it. I feel about the simple fact of the matter is just that, sorry guys, I just feel that way in that matter is just that, how in the world did it take so much oversight? Because again, this isn't the first time. A while back, that was pointed out to a room full of CEOs, would you hire another black person to be the CEO of your company? And the silence that left the room. They didn't even consider it. So again, I'm not surprised at this point that we have to literally have an outreach, a startup company, and those to sign on to sit there and say that yes, we need to actually start being more proactive in hiring minorities. The fact that it had to happen tells you that there's a system out there that wasn't put out there on purpose. It was put in there and it's been working perfectly. It's just that now that the minority is no longer the minority, and it's starting, and you can tell that by these articles. Not to downplay the fact that outreach is going out to black people who don't have 4-year degrees and who don't have extensive training and things of that nature. Not knocking that. I think it's great that they're reaching out to those things. But it goes to show you that it's been there for a reason. And that's the thing like I said, you want to actually stop that, you have to stop it at its source. But I can't knock it for good people trying to do great things. It's just that it perturbs me. It perturbs me. This cacophony, I'm going to start using that word a lot. This cacophony of systemic blocking and economical disadvantages for black people, it's a cacophony of things that have been put in place to keep us in a certain position. Yes, I said it. And I'm going to start using the word cacophony a lot more. But anyway, moving right along, guys, to our last story before we get to our feel-good news segment. If you're like me and student loan people and you just cannot get away from them, well, there actually might be hope. It seems, that Congresswoman Warren and others are trying to pass the Consumer Bankruptcy Reform Act of 2020. What that basically would do, guys, is that it would create a Chapter 10 provision in the U.S. Bankruptcy Code in which student loans will be treated just like credit cards, medical expenses, and other consumer debts that you can file for bankruptcy, and they would be removed from your credit report via a bankruptcy judge. Now, Elizabeth Warren and Representative Gerald Nader of New York are the both the ones that support this. And of course, for anybody that's ever been through bankruptcy, I have definitely been through bankruptcy. It is the last resort because again, bankruptcies are basically lasting your credit for 7 to 10 years, but technically for a lot of people 7 to 10 years is a lot better than trying to get out from under a rut that will probably stick with you until your ending days. That's how student loans work. Now, I got nothing against this, but again, I'm still waiting on Joe because Joe said something last year that sat there and, I'm sorry, not last year, he said something a couple of months ago about student loans, and I want to see him go through with it. Very much, Joe, I'm like, you said that you would either, and again, he said he wouldn't wipe, I mean, I wish he said this. This to me is where I sit there and say, what is it about wiping out student debt for America is so hard? Yes, student debt for America is almost approaching $2 trillion, but we've spent that 4 or 5 times over easy in various other areas. But Joe has sat there and said that he wants to do something about student loan debt, and I'm like, well, either you need to cancel 80% of it, or that you need to cancel all of it. Because the numbers that were thrown around, $10,000 of debt be canceled, $20,000 of debt be canceled, 40, 50. Yeah, that's all well and good, but why not just cancel total student debt? I mean, don't get me wrong about this. I like the fact that, Chapter 10, if it is the Bankruptcy Act of 2020, if it is passed, that would be great for those that, have student loans and you just may not be able to pay them. I mean, let's be honest. These student loans were systematically designed to honestly be paid off unless you made it. And by making it, I mean that you've made it to a very well-paying job. And let's be honest, if you're a recent graduate or you've been a graduate since 2 years ago, it might have been a little difficult to find that job that actually will be paying high enough to pay off these student loans. That's just being honest. But it would be so great to have student loan debt to be wiped out, just because, number one, it'll definitely increase your portfolio. Because let's be honest, a lot of us who have a lot of high student debt will probably prevent us from moving forward as far as getting a home, getting a bank loan, things of that nature, because credit is looking at your debt to income ratio. And trust me, nothing sucks worse than having 70 or 50 or $40,000 or higher, because trust me, there are those out there that are higher, that have a high amount of student loan debt, and it prevents you from getting where you want to be, or you wind up paying more in things just because the ratio of that debt outdoes your income. Again, Joe Biden, we're waiting to see what you do. I hope you do cancel all student debt in the first 100 days. I think you would gain immense popularity if you do that. But also at the same time, I do have nothing against this Bankruptcy Act of finally putting student loans under the same umbrella as credit cards and mortgage payments and all that stuff, just because it'll give the people relief. Yes, they will have to tread water for 7 to 10 years under bankruptcy, but 7 to 10 years of treading water is a whole lot better than a lifetime of trying to basically get out from under a rock that was really designed never to get off your back. I got nothing against that, especially with this case. But then again, Joe, we're going to be looking at you for this because, again, I said it best. If canceling the student loans of U.S. Citizens will raise debt portfolios across the board. Me especially, because Lord, when I tell you guys, I'm not trying to preach here, but if I saw my student loans were gone, if I saw that my student loans were gone off my credit report, I'd cry. I'm not one of those people that cry on camera, but I will cry. I will give that Denzel Washington glory. Just that one tear. When he's just sitting there and he's staring at Matthew Broderick as he's getting whipped and that one tear just comes down. That'd be me. I'm not gonna lie. If you sat there and told me, Mr. Buchanan, your student loans are free and clear. Tear. That's it. I'd be ecstatic. I really would be. But anyway, But that's really the stories we have, guys. We're just going to move on to our feel-good news segment. Because like we say here on How the Frack We Got Here, we do talk about a lot of things. Some of those things can be doom and gloom and just makes you feel like, damn, that just puts a damper on your day. And we don't try to do that. Of course, we do this on the weekend. And, if you're working, hopefully your day goes fast. But if you're not working, you're trying to relax. Or at least trying to, as we get down to the last moments of Christmas shopping, if you will. To last moments of Christmas shopping, you will. And like I said before, you got maybe one more week before, Santa has to show up. Not gonna get into that because there's a lot of parents in here who have told their kids about Santa, and I'm gonna be very nice and not tell the truth. But anyway, like I said before, we're just trying to get some good news stories out here. And I always figured because December is Santa related. So, if you were in Bristol, Tennessee this week and you go to Walmart and you have a layaway, chances are your layaway is paid off. Somebody who was Secret Santa that came to this Walmart in Bristol, Tennessee, paid off the entire balance there of on nearly $65,000 to people who had stuff on layaway. And of course, there were some people in there that did get a notification from Walmart saying their layaway is paid off and did not know that, what was going on until, until someone came in and was like, oh yeah, somebody at 6 in the morning just came in and said, I want to pay off everybody's layaway. And, of course, that's a great thing. It's nothing wrong with being an anonymous Secret Santa because, trust me, if I had that type of money, I would do the same stuff. I would go around doing miscellaneous stuff in a Batman outfit just to mess with people. But again, I like the fact of the story because, again, it takes a Secret Santa, and trust me, they are out there, that go out there and actually do these type of things. In this case, this person was here in Walmart and decided just to go ahead and pay off everybody's layaway there. So I can't knock that. That's just, you actually helped out a lot of people's Christmases. Another story that I got, guys, and I'm really reporting about this, and I know we talk about Florida Man a lot because Florida Man always seems to be into some stuff. But Florida Man, again, decided to pay off the past due utilities for 114 families who were at risk of getting their utilities shut off. This guy has this story. If you wonder about this, has happened before. This same guy, and they do name his not Mr. Esmond, has actually done this before. The last year he paid for 136 families, and this year he's paying for 114 families who are facing disconnection. And I don't know about you, but I like electricity. I prefer not to be in the dark. I prefer having hot water. But I think it's cool, like I said before, that a business owner is deciding to, again, in which seems to be in this Christmas fashion, of actually paying off utilities for folks who are actually struggling. And again, even though for a lot of us, he donated on nearly almost $7,700 to pay past due amounts, but I think it's just, again, it's cool to see that stuff. Just because there are just people out there that are just trying to help other people get by. And again, I can't be mad about that. I like the fact that he's just doing it just to help people. And like I said, to me, that's pretty cool. The last story I got, guys, is also another pay it forward situation. Over 900 cars paid for each other's I'm sorry, I should put it this way. 900 cars did a pay it forward at a Dairy Queen drive-thru in Minnesota. Does it sound like a Lifetime movie? Possibly. But again, it's one of those things where you might be in one of those, and you probably were in one of those situations where you were at a drive-thru or a restaurant somewhere where people just paid your meal or paid your drink or things of that nature. And then again, I always like the idea of paying it forward. The simple fact of the matter is, when you pull up and you're about to pay, and the lady says, "Oh no, the car in front of you paid for you, so we're all taken care of here." And the simple fact of the matter is that that 900 cars. Could you imagine the drive-through person that was? Could you imagine the drive-through person that was literally about to take money and say, "Oh yeah, I want to pay for the car behind me too." What was their order? What was their amount? What was the amount of their order? I'll pay for it. And that drive-through person probably got tongue-tied. "Oh no, you don't got to pay. The person in front of you did." And somebody might sit there and say, "Oh, well that's the case. I want to pay for the person behind me." And the person that sit there and get tongue-tied like, "Oh, don't worry, they took care of it for you." And again, I know it's the holiday season. I know during the holiday season we like to we like to, try to give back if we can and try to help out each other. I wish that was a season. I wish it wasn't just a seasonal thing and that was an all year thing, but that's just me. But I like the fact of just seeing these type of stories where, folks will turn around and just want to help people, and there is nothing wrong with that. I think that is great that they just want to help people just because they can and they're not looking for anything back. I think that is cool. Even, like I said, even on this year about Santa Claus, and I'm not going to do that because, like I said, I know some people have told their children about Santa Claus, and I'm not going to ruin that story. So, that's all the stuff I have, guys, before I get out. Before I get out of here, I just want to thank everybody that peeked their head in, that liked, that watched, that, so shared and subscribed. I certainly appreciate that. Speaking of subscribing, the link at the bottom, if you'll just copy and paste it into a browser, will take you to my How the Frack We Got Here YouTube page, to where you'll be able to see everything, even though you can also see it on Facebook, but I always prefer YouTube, just because it's sometimes a lot easier to navigate, and trust me, never know when Zuckerberg may shut off the lights. So, you can definitely use that link here at the bottom to definitely go to my YouTube page to see every podcast that I've done thus far. Before I do get out of here, I do have some shameless plugging to do. I will start with my buddy Vaughn, a Big BZA who is also watching this, and hopefully, dude, you're feeling better. And if you are his friend, cool. You know where to go to his videos. If you're not, then go to Big BZA on Facebook, and then once he friends you, go to his video section to where you'll be able to see his podcast that I'm about to describe. I'll start first with the VST. What is the VST? The VST is a news podcast, kind of similar to mine. Vaughn and I, we are adults. We do handle our business. We do make sure that we do everything that adults are supposed to do. But we are big-ass kids. We do like to talk about video games, and that's what Vaughn does as part of his VSTs. He talks about upcoming video games. He talks about new music. He talks about movies and trailers. I call him the king of weird trailers, just simply put, because he finds the weirdest trailers out there. Some of them are good. Some of them are off, and some of them I just go, you were bored that day. But his whole show is interactive just like mine, so definitely give it a like. So definitely give it a like, share there. He also has Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ. What is Random as Fuck? Random as Fuck is the pool of ratchets we sometimes dip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some bills make you think, some bills make you cry. Always memorable as he does into a theme. This is still my favorite go-to one because his theme on this one was Fuck Donald Trump. And in these videos, like I said, he does into a theme. There is one where he does, like I said, shows Trump supporters sitting outside the election office praying for them to stop counting the votes. Yes, that really did happen. He even has one of Kenneth Copeland, I'm sorry, that is by far the creepiest laugh I've ever heard from a white dude since the Penguin in Batman Returns. But again, he does look at random videos, and like I said before, it's always entertaining and funny and interactive, so you can definitely give that a like as well. He also has another show, which he will be doing, hopefully coming back soon with, called Rhythmness, the Rhythmness Music Podcast. And on Rhythmness, him and myself and others, we like to get together, and Vaughn likes to bring up new music, or sometimes we bring up new music, and we usually say whether or not we like it or we hate it, or just overall the person should stand divide. But again, we are all differences on the musical scale, but differences in taste lead to great conversation, and that's what the Rhythmless Music Podcast is about. So definitely give a like there. It is completely interactive. And finally, he has a pop-up show, which he is starting to do a lot more of now, and I'm kind of glad about that. And what is this pop-up show? This pop-up show is called Funkin' Around. Now, as you've probably seen him do multiple times on Facebook, he is a guy that likes to do beats, as you can hear in the background. And I'm not going to mess with Bella's junky background because my background is junky too. And trust me, junky backgrounds are the signs of greatness. And trust me, Vaughn is definitely that. And then as Vaughn likes to do right now as far as showing off his setup and his fiance, he wants to basically, like I said before, he is a musical producer. He likes to show his production of his beats from beginning to end. And that's what Funkin' Around is, as you can hear in the background. And I keep on hoping that that my friend will dip his toe back into the pond of beat making because he is definitely very talented. But again, all of his shows can be found under his Facebook page at BigBZA. Of course, go to his video section and you'll be able to see every podcast that he's done. And of course, BigBZA on all social medias. Definitely look out for him as he will let you know from his Facebook and Instagram when he will be doing other shows. Aside from that, guys, like I said before, with me personally, I do a few shows of my own. Every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. is the Burned Out Podcast. It's my IT storytelling podcast, in which I tell stories from my IT background about dealing with the human condition. And trust me, it's better than therapy in my opinion, because I try to tell funny stories, and if it's funny to you, that's great. If not, then you probably need to lighten up, because I'm probably talking about you anyway as the user. Of course, every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon, as you can see, is the How the Frack We Got Here podcast. A little bit later tonight, between 8 to 10 p.m., will be the Off Limits podcast. This is a podcast that definitely does go there. By go there, I mean we talk about the subjects that many people don't want to talk about, or out of fear, or just out of being looked at or being criticized. Not me. I'm pretty much shameless when it comes to this. And tonight will not be no exception, because it's something that happened this week to me, and I believe that I should talk about it, and I definitely will do it tonight. Of course, a little bit later on Sunday between 7 and 9 p.m. will be the Get Bit podcast. That's my blurred podcast, in which we cover everything in the world of pop culture, sci-fi, video games, movies, comic books, TV shows, and things of that nature. And trust me, we have a lot this Sunday, especially with the fact of new video game trailers and the news from Disney/Marvel, as they have came out with a cacophony. I told you I was going to use that word. They've come out with a cacophony of new news, and trust me, we have a lot of trailers and stuff to go over for Get Bit this Sunday, so hopefully you guys will see you there then. All of my shows can be found on my Facebook page at William Buchanan, or under their own Facebook and YouTube pages. So whether on Facebook or YouTube, you can look them up by their show names. You can look them up by the Burned Out Podcast, How the Frack We Got Here, the Off Limits Podcast, and Get Bit. That is GITBIT, to see every podcast that I've done thus far. But before you get out of here, guys, like I said before, COVID-19 is real. I know I'm going to keep saying that until it's no longer a threat to us. So if you're out and about today, please wear a mask. Please do social distancing. Please do not go to overcrowded areas. Like if you're like me on Saturdays, I only go out for food. I mean, I may occasionally go out with the girlfriend, just because we need that quality time together. But aside from that, I usually just go out for food. That's it. Everything else I have is at home. But again, like I said, guys, if you have to go out, please be safe. Please avoid large crowds. Please wear a mask correctly. It goes over the nose. It goes over the nose. It doesn't go under the nose. It goes over the nose. That's the reason why the mask is big. But if you are sick, please stay at home if it's not serious. If you are finding yourself really needing serious medical attention, then please go to the hospital and get that attention that you need. Aside from that, guys, let's be smarter about this. Cases are now reaching, hospitalization is now almost reaching max capacity. We have already now over 280,000 deaths. It's time to do it smartly. It is time to be more conservative about this. It is time to be smart about this. Wear a mask and actually keep people safe around you. And like I said, it is honestly, if it's not worth it, it's just not worth it. Simple and plain. Also, with that also being said, guys, if you see a nurse or a doctor, doctor's nurse, nurse's aide, doctor's aide, environment people that work in the hospitals, simply say thank you. They are not given enough credit for all that they do. And trust me, they do a lot. It's just like the essential workers, just like teachers who teach remotely, just like gas station grocery store people, just like truck stop drivers, those that work in warehouses like Amazon, and those that work in logistics like the United States Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, DHL, and so many others. A lot of people are able to work from home, and that's great. A lot of people don't have that same choice, so they have to risk their health to go in and keep the lights on for the rest of us, and those people should be given a lot more than thank you, but at least just say thank you and don't be a dick about it. Especially for those that work in the hospitality and food services. I understand things can be rough, but just try to be nice. I try to be nice every time I get my food ordered, because I understand that some folks, it's rough, but it doesn't hurt to be nice, and it doesn't hurt to be patient. So that's what I try to do. So with that being said, guys, like I said before, I do thank everybody for watching. If you watch this live, thank you guys so much for peeping your head in. Thank you for the comments, because I can definitely see them up there. I can definitely see them up there now. And if you're seeing this on the playback, just comment as if it's live, because again, I want to know what everybody's opinion is. If you like what I did, please let me know. If you didn't like what I did, please let me know. I'm just trying to make this platform better for everybody to enjoy. And like I said, the point of how the Frack We Got Here is about staying informed. We're not trying to change opinions. We're not trying to persuade you. We're not trying to do anything short of just informing you and allowing you to make up your own mind. Because information is how we can actually get by. Informing people and enlightening them is how we actually get them to basically form that consensus that we used to have. Because an informed community can do a lot better. They can do a lot better than an uninformed one. Because an uninformed one got us Trump and almost got us screwed. But an informed community got us Biden and Harris, and hopefully we'll be able to, and unfortunately we'll be spending the first term of their presidency cleaning up everything that Dorito did, and that's how the Frack We Got Here. So I do thank you all for watching. I do hope you have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully, please stay safe. That's all we can ask for right now. And like I said, we'll see you guys again next week. Yeah, we're just going to go from there. Peace.